To be perfectly honest, the story is intended to know nothing about me before you hear it. Like, it's the story that I opened my first book with. So it's a cold open. Like, you just open and you're reading this story about me. So hypothetically, it's fine if you know nothing about me, because what I hope this story teaches you is it teaches you who I am and how I work, how my brain works. So it's an introduction to me story that requires no prior knowledge.
Hello, and welcome to the Nutshell True Story Hour, a podcast for people who love stories. My name is Aaron Carnes, and I'm an author and one of the creators of In a Nutshell Storytelling, a monthly storytelling show in Sacramento, California. My co-creators are the world-class comedian Keith Lowell Jensen and storyteller Amy B., also the person who pretty much runs this whole shindig. Every episode, we share with you one of our favorite stories told live at our show, followed by a conversation with the storyteller about how that story came to be. This week, local storytelling celebrity Corey Rosen tells a funny and insightful story on our stage about road rage, which happened while taking his kids to school. The theme for that show was Bullies. And like many good stories, Corey's doesn't point to an obvious good guy or bad guy. He presents us with different imperfect people having their own imperfect experiences. When Corey sat down with us later, he gained a fresh perspective on this story he's told many times before. Let's give it a listen.
I'm going to tell you a story, my bully story. So I am a dad of two kids, and so it's May 23rd specifically, and it's 7:43 a.m. specifically, and I get punched in the face specifically, dropping my kids off at their elementary school in San Francisco by another kid's mom. So let me rewind a little bit. I love, like, the best part of my day is driving my kids to school. It is the carpool of my dreams. Like, I love it. There's a thing that has kind of emerged over time where it is the most concentrated time that I get to spend with Henry and Noli, Magnolia, we call her Noli. We live in a distracted world. We live in a world of screens and things that are pulling us apart. So I've kind of taken this moment that we have, this time to go from our house in the eastern side of San Francisco. We live in a neighborhood called Potrero Hill, and we go to their school, which is a San Francisco public school called Rooftop Elementary. It's a K through 8 actually, and it's physically and geographically the center of San Francisco. There's a marker on the sidewalk right outside the school. It's right by Twin Peaks, Sutro Tower, if you know the city at all. So it takes us on average about 17 minutes to get to school every day. And I know this because my daughter is a kind of STEM-brained kid, and she has taken to logging our ride every day in a small notebook. And it didn't initially start with the times. It started initially out of fairness. It started out of who gets to sit in front, because, there's only one front seat. It's an orange Mini Cooper, and so there's a back seat and a front seat, and my kids fight over who gets to sit in front. So there's a fairness thing of who gets to be there, and so I wasn't going to keep track of whose turn it was. So I was like, you guys have to keep track. So Noli started keeping a notebook log of whose turn it was, and then that started to expand into who drove, mom or dad. It was usually dad, mom, dad. And then over time, she was asking, how long does it take to get to school? And I was like, I don't know. Why don't you write that in your book? So she added a column for start time, like arrival time, total time. And then occasionally, like, the data would get corrupted. Like something would happen, like something happens periodically where there would be like the time that I was taking the garbage cans back into the house on garbage day, and I left my bagel on top of the garbage can, and you might say, Corey, just leave the bagel, but I went back for the bagel. The bagel was important to me. I had a very strong attachment to my bagel, so I went back, and that was a time that the kids were late to school, and imagine that conversation. But anyway, there was the time also that we got hit, that somebody was backing out of their driveway, and they were backing out, and I gave them a little like toot toot, like I'm here, and they hit the wrong pedal, as she said, and sped up, crashed into the side of the Mini Cooper. So that was exciting. Made it in the notebook, logged in there. And so on this particular day, we leave at a normal time. So we leave around 7:27. I want to say we try to leave before 7:30 because school start time is 7:50. So we leave about 7:27, and we get in the car, and we head out on the road. Now, Henry is the front seat passenger this day. Noli is in the back seat. And we're driving along the route that we take every day. We have the same path, the same journey. And what's kind of amazing to me is that, again, this time that we get to spend together has these like moments where we are sort of traveling through time and space. We're traveling through San Francisco, and we're seeing landmarks, but they're not landmarks like Coit Tower and Lombard Street. They're landmarks like Dad-Son Corner, which is a specific corner where a dad and son are always on the same corner. They're always there waiting for their bus. And the dad is always on his phone looking down, and the son is always looking out at the world with just these eyes that are just like looking and taking it all in. And it's like this sort of beautiful, funny, weird, heartbreaking combination, but we love it. And that gets noted in the book when we see Dad-Son Corner. This was a Dad-Son Corner day. There's Jonah's Stop. Jonah is a kid that Henry goes to school with, and one day when he took the bus home, he noted that this is where Jonah gets off. Jonah's Stop is a landmark along our journey. We're getting closer. We're going up the hill now, and we get to this windy part of Corbett Avenue is what it's called, which gets to Rooftop School. So if you've ever been up in like the sort of Twin Peaks neighborhoods, the roads are kind of windy and kind of curvy, and you sort of have to make your way around, and they're usually these kind of 2-lane roads, and there's cars parked along them, and their school is situated right on one of these, one of these curvy roads. And something that I've really specifically enjoyed also being with my kids too is that besides just the seeing the city outside, it's also the communication, obviously, that we have between each other, the things that we talk about, the conversations that we have where I have taken this time to teach them things. Tuesday is New Music Tuesday, for example. I've made various different mixes of songs that I think it's important for them to know, or genres of music, like we'll have a reggae day, or we'll have a punk day. The day they did not like was New Metal Day. If any of you are fans of, are the Deftones local? I think they might be. Yeah, my children did not like the Deftones, so don't tell them. Or Korn, any of them. That was not a, if you don't know what new metal is, it's like the sort of, anyway, not popular among them. But also there's like, there's sort of things that I feel like they're teaching me. Maybe I'm teaching them too, but there's things where like we're talking about things happening in the world, things about like pressures in the world. They're teaching me about how they're learning about social justice, for example, about reconciling with people that you maybe have had confrontations with and saying you're sorry, and things that are happening in the world at large. And it's just a beautiful way for me as a parent and as a person to kind of see and realize what's happening, what they're learning. And honestly, feels like a very unique 16 minutes that I get to spend with them every day, because the rest of the time we are off doing our own things. So it's the windy road getting to the rooftop school, and something slightly unusual happens this day, which is that I see a car has stopped in front of me, and there's a man on the side of the road that looks like he wants to cross the street. And it's a winding thing. So I slow down, I let the car in front of me go ahead, and I let the man cross the street. But in doing so, the car behind me does not see that there's a man over there, and the car behind me does the thing that cars behind you when somebody stops in the middle of a 2-lane road do, which is that they laid on their horn in the punishing way that we do. Like the angry, long, loud honk, right? And I am, I don't want to say that I was in the right or the wrong, but I was doing the safe thing at this point, so I just kept with the program and ignored the honking, and I stayed with my own thing. And then when the guy was safely across the street, I proceeded to go towards the school, which is now at this point only maybe 1 minute more down this windy road. But the car won't let it go. They're not letting it go. Even though I am back to driving down the road, the honking is just like it's just persisting, leaning on that horn as if just to drive in the FU to me and all that I stand for, and how dare you have stopped, sir. And so I do sort of what is an instinctive part of me, which is that I have this thing. I don't know if I'm just a natural contrarian. I like to think of myself as a kind person, but I did grow up being bullied by my older brother, Adam. He's 3 years older. I'm the middle of 3 boys, and he knew all the ways to poke me or insult me that would make me just flip my shit. Like I kept a baseball bat in my closet, and I never used it on him, but he would do that. And I would stand in my door as a little kid, like probably my kid's age, and just like shaking, like wanting to hit him with it. And my parents weren't any support in this. They thought it was hilarious. They cut out a picture from a magazine of like an abused housewife holding a baseball bat. They're like, "Oh, this is our son." It's true side story. And so I never got any support there. So I'm driving now, and they're punishing me from behind. And so I do what I think is partly a safety thing and partly vindictive, let's just say, which is that I go a little slower than I normally. Just a little slower. Like I would go, but like the beeping. I mean, you could make an argument that with a beep that forceful. Maybe I should be aware of something. Maybe they know something I don't know. They're trying to alert me. They're like, "Corey, watch out! There's trouble ahead!" And so I'm being extra cautious. And to the point of like, we're now just crawling. We're just barely going, right? And now it's like, it's in the 7:40s, and school starts at 7:50. So we're going, and at this point, whoever it is behind me decides that they're going to overtake me. They're like going to go around me, right? So that's where I pulled out the move, right? Which is not a move I invented, but it is something I used in this instance, which is when they pulled around me, and then you speed up. Then you go full speed. So now what's happening is now you're side by side, sort of like, 50s movie style, where one car's in the oncoming traffic lane and you're in the other way. And luckily, my son isn't in between the two cars, like holding on for dear life. But we do have the scene where now they're in the other lane. And as we come around the final corner, boom, all the cars are stopped. So now I'm stopped there, and they're stopped next to me because they are landlocked. Yes, there is nowhere for this vehicle to go but into sort of oncoming traffic. And this is where now, like, the buses are all dropping the kids off, and other parents and kids are opening up the doors, which is what we do. We open the door, and Noli gets out of the back seat, and she's kind of, getting back in, and Henry gets in to the car. And I should also paint a little bit of the picture of what I look like on this day. It was a Tuesday morning. And I had another unusual thing this day, which is that I was going to jury duty. That's where I had, after dropping the kids off, I was to report for jury duty. And I was dressed in a way to make them maybe not pick me for the jury. I'm wearing a white shirt and a bow tie. Was the outfit I picked out for myself. Just to get the full picture of me in an orange Mini Cooper with a bow tie, 2 young children. As they're finishing getting out of the car, I look forward and I see the woman walking down the middle of Corbett Road. She has pulled her car over, and she is now coming to face me and to confront me. And I see her eyes, and she's looking at me, and I'm looking at her, and now we have a situation where now I am sitting in my Mini Cooper with my bow tie and my son next to me, and an angry lady coming right towards me. And she stops at my window, and she says, "You made me almost hit you." And I said, the thing I now know to never say. I said, I think you have road rage and you should calm down. Now you tell me. Nobody told me then. And this is where, at this point, I think we both got an idea at the exact same time, which is that her idea was, I'm going to punch that man in the face. I have been told in the past that I have a punchable face, and she, I think, read that. She read that. Maybe she got the note from Adam, my brother, that, like, this is what to do. But I also got the idea, like, I should close the window. Maybe if I close the window, I won't get punched in the face. So no sooner do I turn, because in my car, mostly it would be on this side, but it's on this side. So I'm turning to there. I feel the fist against my jaw. And I look over at my son, Henry, who is watching, just slack-jawed. And I look over at the woman who's looking now slack-jawed, like, what have I just done? And, there's that alien brain thing, right? The fight, flight, freeze. I am a flight, I guess, because I just hit, it's a stick shift to it, hit the thing and pulled out. Because this has just all happened in front of the principal of the school, the children, like the school is unloading for the morning rituals. And I drive away from the scene and I get to Henry's drop off, because Henry's 11, so he's at the middle school campus, he's fifth grade. And we pull over and Henry looks at me and he says, Dad, why did that woman just hit you? And I said, well, I think she was upset. I think she was upset at what I did. And he goes, well, why did you do what you did? And I had this realization then, as I have now every time I tell the story, which is that I was feeling in that moment like I was having my buttons pushed. I was being bullied by this other driver. And I realized that I am so good at turning the tables, that I was the bully in this story, that I pushed her buttons. This is a mom who's just trying to get her children to school, to get on with her life. And here's this asshole stopping his car in the middle of the road so I can't get my children to school. And the punch that I took in the face, I fully deserved. I feel that. I still feel it. And my son, master of social justice and reconciliation, says, well, why didn't you say you're sorry? And I say, you're right. That is exactly what I should have said. And while there's parts of this story that are very shameful to me, parts that I would like to write out and forget, I'm not allowed to do that, because a week later was the end of school and Noli printed out her data. She entered it into the computer and printed it out to bring into her teacher. And for all time now, there is a log of the time that we left at 7:27, the time that we arrived at 7:43, and under notes it says, Dad punched in face. Thank you. Thank you so much.
First thing I want to ask about is your storytelling style.
Yes.
Which seems very conversational, to the point where you have this ability to drop very important, very emotionally heavy information in a way that's very casual. So nice. I'm curious, is that a goal of yours as a storyteller, to have that sort of conversational style? What attracted you to this style? Yeah.
Question. And thank you, first off, for asking that question. Like, these are interesting things. I don't think I've ever actually gone through this exercise of watching myself and then immediately giving myself feedback or commentary on my own storytelling style. Yeah. So it's a really interesting question to have. And maybe I'm doing that right now with my conversational style, is turning an answer into a conversation. But the truth is, I think so. I think that is a style that I have, which is this idea that in some ways, my way of telling stories is the way that I would tell it to you if I was just talking to a person one-on-one. Mm-hmm. So even if I'm on stage in front of hundreds of people or talking on the radio or wherever that is, I like to talk to people. And so I think that I kind of always imagine it that way. So while I'm talking and I'm telling a story, what'll go through my head is, well, what other information might they need to know to understand this story? And so I'll have to for myself and for the story itself, backfill a little bit what that is. Now, I'm not always doing this, like making it up as I go. In the story that you just saw, that was all stuff that was pre-planned and preordained of what I would say. But the style in which I do it is probably something that I have over time started doing, which is this conversational style of telling things as if I'm just talking to one person.
Let me ask, right in the beginning of the story, you tell us how it's going to end.
Yes.
You know, you do the little kind of, I don't know, cliffhanger and then rolling backwards. You say, let me rewind. Did that happen instinctively, or was that a decision that you made at some point to do that little reveal and then?
Yeah, no, I didn't do that. It's in media res is the storytelling convention is what that is. It's starting a story in the middle of the story with a specific purpose, like the structural and strategic, I guess you could call it, style of doing that is to broadcast to some degree to the audience, where is this story going? Very often when I'm telling stories or when I'm hearing stories, I'm curious, like, where are you going with this? Sometimes in a good way, sometimes it's going to keep me kind of pulling through the story. Sometimes in like when is this story going to end? I have no idea if this is actually a story or it's one of those things that you're telling me and it's going to just then turn into another thing that you're telling me.
And go nowhere.
Because I know people that tell stories like that. So what I find in this kind of storytelling is by indicating this is a story about getting punched in the face early in the story so that it's awakening some both understanding that, oh, this is an interesting story, hopefully, or some curiosity of like, why were you punched in the face? What is the story really about? So then by not telling you right away what's going on, and by backtracking, what I've done is I've planted a seed that I'm hoping will flower later on in the story. So when we get to that point, you're like, oh yeah, you get punched in the face. So
yeah.
So that, and I'm also, as you see in the way that I told that story, I'm doing a lot of crisscrossing and telling you different bits of information about me, about my children, about my life, about my carpooling, about my general situation, so that by the time we get there, maybe you've forgotten that part of the story,
right?
Which is a little bit also of a strategic thing that I sometimes like to do, is to plant something, let you forget about it. So when it comes back, we all kind of remember like, oh yeah.
One thing that occurred to me when you were telling it is that without the punch in the face, either at the beginning or when you eventually get to it, it's just a story about road rage, and we all have one.
Yes.
We all have many.
Yes.
It's a kudos. I mean, you do a really good job of taking a normal, mundane carpooling thing and you make it really interesting. And I love all the little details, like the dad-son corner and you know, your son's friends stop and Good job, because I was thinking like even without that big hook, because it's a great hook, like it would still be a very interesting story. It's very compelling.
Thank you for that. And here's what I think, why I think I do that, and what I think has become part of my thinking when I'm thinking about stories too, is that so many times we lean into like things that we think of as our big stories, the big thing that happened, the big breakup, the big, proposal, the big death, like birth, whatever, like the big moments in our lives. And sure, we all have those things, but there's also these moments, these small moments that are what make us human. And sometimes what those things are is, again, we can kind of peek into those little holes and we see this other galaxy of who we are.
Yeah.
And what I like about that story is that to me also reminds me of that time. I mean, my kids are teenagers now. So in a way, by recalling and kind of concocting that as like, this is a story, it's a story about that ritual that we had that is now moved on.
Yeah.
But it's a way for me to go, no, that was as important a thing for me as getting punched in the face. It was the time that I spent with my kids. It was the things that we learned and that we did together, and the dad-son corners and the New Music Tuesdays and the little moments and the little flashes of like the things that we're missing in our lives, but they're actually what make us who we are.
What is your relationship to memorization of the story? Do you have it laid out pretty cohesively, or do you have this sort of romantic idea of like, every time I tell this story or tell any story, it's going to be different and I'm going to be surprised by it along with everyone else?
Great question. So I'm a big believer in developing and writing out the beats of the story, but not the words of the story. There are versions, like this is in a book that I wrote. So like there's a version that's a written out version of the story, but the versions that I prepare for performance, what I try to go in with is like, I know that I'm going to hit these beats in this order. And what that allows for is it allows for like some space in between so that I can then respond to the response. So if I'm getting laughs, if I'm getting no laughs, if I need to speed things up or slow things down, I can do that because I know where I'm going. I know what the path is, and it allows me to compress or expand as needed. And that means that when people are digging it and enjoying it, like I can milk that a little bit. I can slow that down, stretch that out, make more of a meal out of that because people seem interested. And if not, like, well, let's just get on to the next important thing.
And I want to interject too. Amy and I went to the Moth one time, and you told a story that was hinted at here. The jury duty thing. You told a story about jury duty, and in that story, you hinted at this story. So, do you remember that?
Yeah. Well, just very recently, I had jury duty again, and so I think what I did is I alluded to an entire other story, and the story within the story, but then that was a different story about a different jury duty. So it was a different situation, I think.
Yeah. But
if I'm remembering, this was recently, right? Like in the past year,
If I remember, you said that you like jury duty, but
in
this story, your only reference is that you're trying to get out of jury duty.
Exactly. Well, the character is trying to get out of jury duty.
But you like jury duty.
But yeah. I mean, aren't we playing characters in the stories? Yeah.
But not always the same character in every story?
Well, I have a lot of different aspects and facets of my character.
I don't know that I've ever heard a storyteller.
Really?
I've heard storytellers think of themselves as a character in their story, but to think of themselves as different characters in different stories, I love that.
Well, the dad version of my life, the juror, the civil servant character. I mean, there's different parts of me. And I also think about, I mean, we're going to just... not to go deep dive into jury duty, but the concept of jury duty is actually something that I love. I love just another part of my character, this character, is I like to be in situations that are a little bit different. I like, I, as a storyteller, I try to go like, what's the story that might show up in this place? And jury is a great place to hear and experience people and stories and your community and every aspect of the ritual of going to jury duty for me, from like taking the Muni over to Civic Center, to waiting in line, to going to the jury room, like the watching the stupid video, like all the things to me are part of it. But it's also like a giant inconvenience that I don't want to waste time. And there's times in my life that I'm like, this is the worst time in my life to be doing this right now. I don't have time to be on a jury, but conceptually, and when I actually have served on juries, I've really enjoyed it. So I think at that time, this was a time where I was like, I would like to not be on this jury. So I'm going to dress in a bow tie, which is something I learned from my dad. That's what my dad does.
Really? Yeah. I would have thought it would be the opposite. I thought they would love the guy in the bow tie. I would have gone in a dirty wife beater.
Did it work?
I was not selected for the jury.
Okay. So what's the thinking? What's the
thinking?
What
is
does
that
the bow tie say to them?
It was. I mean, I picked this up sort of in the '90s. The sort of Tucker Carlson Fox.
Oh, you look
News.
like a prick.
You look a little bit like a prick. The idea is if you sort of sit there with your arms crossed wearing a bow tie, you look a little more conservative. You look a little more opinionated, and they're like, "This is not the guy we want on the jury." So listen. I'm not saying that. I would be interested maybe in the comments. People can say, "Have you ever been judged for your bow ties?" Maybe. I don't know.
Aaron, did you notice we've watched many storytellers watch their own stories from storytellers who won't look at the screen to Corey who seems to genuinely enjoy it.
That was a note I took as well.
I liked it. I like that story. And I also, there were some notes I was making to self about things that I was doing wrong. There was one particular thing where I caught myself. I was like, oh, I was supposed to have said that earlier.
Okay.
There was a couple of drops, like things that I'd like to mention earlier. The thing about the things I learned from my children about the social justice and the idea that I'm learning from them is something I prefer to plant way earlier in a story like this, so that at the end, when I'm having the conversation with my son about, well, why didn't you just do the thing that you taught me to do, or the social justice thing? Like it's the child teaches the father, that kind of idea. I actually, in a nutshell, when I told this story, multiple people came up to me, they're like, no, you were in the right.
Right.
Like, that woman should not have punched you. No way she should have punched you. And that's another thing that I think I've vacillated when developing this story is there a right and a wrong in this? And also, I guess to some degree, is it a story about right and wrong? Or is it a story about something else? Is it about the rituals that we have, or about the relationships that we have with our children, about the things that wake us up? Yeah. And that's where ultimately what I landed on, and what was kind of fun to watch me do, which I was enjoying watching the story, was making it a story about me as a young parent and me as someone reconciling and wrestling with being right or being wrong in general.
Well, there's something that you bring us to as an audience, and that is your childhood, being picked on by your brother, and how your parents pretty much were. Could we say your whole family was bullying you? Would that be fair?
To some degree. Yeah. I mean, maybe that was just the culture of my family.
Yeah.
It's like funny dark.
Yeah.
You know?
But you basically say that this upbringing turns you into a passive aggressive person.
Yeah.
And so you say that, and it gives us sympathy for your situation. But I think you're also saying in the story that you were putting something on this woman that wasn't her fault. And I think that's probably why you landed on you being in the wrong, because of that, right?
Well, let me ask you that, because actually watching that again, I was like, I don't know if that part belongs in the story. Like, did that add anything valid or valuable?
The part about your relationship with your family?
Yeah.
100%.
Really?
For all the reasons Aaron just said.
Tell me why. Because honestly, watching it, I was like, I should have cut that out.
I think it says a lot about where you're coming from, why you responded the way you did. And again, with the question of right or wrong and where she was in that.
Yeah.
She was before the punch.
Mm-hmm.
The punch, you lose all this is a lesson we're teaching my daughter right now. Even if you're in the right, you lose moral high ground once you get physical.
Yeah.
Says the guy who wrote a book about punching Nazis. But it does put on you some of your reaction to her instead of putting it all on her, because she was being a dick.
Yeah.
But you have a reason why you respond so strong. And I think it's good.
I see. That's my backstory, is that push my buttons enough that I will respond.
You're going to go get that baseball bat out of the closet.
I will, yeah.
And in this case, that baseball bat was you just slowing down. I also love the laugh of recognition, because we've all done it. I've done it recently.
Yeah.
Where someone's tailgating me or being a prick, and my solution is, well, I can drive slower.
Yeah.
I have nowhere to be.
Of course.
And the whole audience responded with you there. They were like, oh yeah, we've done that.
Yeah. It's a very human thing. It's this thing of like, when you're, whatever situation you're in, that it's important to you, and the person in front of you, it's not important to them. So they're going to punish you for it being important to you. And it's just like a weird, like innate dickishness that's like weak. I can get back at you in a completely passive aggressive way. So I also look at, and I also remember, I remember that moment. I remember being in that story and being in that situation, and honestly feeling like when somebody is tailgating and beeping at me, I feel unsafe. And I feel like if I go faster, am I making myself less or more safe? So by going slower, I'm actually making myself more safe. So then once they back off, then I'm like, okay, now I can drive as I do. So maybe that's another lesson.
Yeah, there's so many lessons in the story. Well, so Corey, you host the Moth in Berkeley. Moth famously is the place where you tell a 5-minute story.
Yeah.
What is your opinion yourself on the 5-minute story versus the longer story? Do you prefer one or the other? Do you approach them differently?
Yes, I definitely do. And I do have an opinion on the concept, just because I've been in that world. I mean, this is like year 13 or 14 of hosting 5-minute story shows like The Moth. So I started hosting The Moth back in 2011, 2012. And that format is a story slam versus like like your show, which is more like a curated show where you're inviting storytellers to tell stories. I have just developed an appreciation, I guess, over the years of doing this, that for story slams, 5 minutes is a great amount of time for that kind of thing. If you let people go too long, what you get into these stories that just don't know how to end, and they kind of go on and on. And with people that are, let's say, don't want to say better storytellers, but more experienced and kind of know what the shape of the story should feel like. Allowing them to go longer is good because you sort of trust that they're going to take you somewhere and deliver it, pay it off. But I think what a Moth Story Slam or a 5-minute story does for everyone, the storyteller and the audience, is that if the story sucks, like, oh, well, it's only going to
right.
like 2 more minutes and we can get out of here. And just the same, if a story is amazing, you'd be like, how did you do that in 5 minutes? I was laughing and crying and feeling, and you just developed a whole world. So I think that also as a practice for a student or somebody who's working on their storytelling, like practice telling 5-minute stories. It's a great format to get good at telling stories so that you could then work on telling shorter or longer stories from there.
Mm-hmm.
That's my thing.
It's kind of like haiku, where it's like, I love haiku and I love writing in that format, but I wouldn't want to be stuck in it all the time. Like, I'm glad I can also write longer pieces.
Yeah.
But it's its own art form, and you can get really good at it.
Yeah.
And hopefully that does strengthen your ability to write longer pieces as well. You would not you corrected yourself when you said some people are better storytellers.
Yeah.
I want to touch on that. Why are we so hesitant to say, some people are really fucking good at this and some people aren't?
Yeah.
Some people are not good storytellers. Some people are great storytellers.
Sure. Well, we mentioned earlier this idea that sometimes people lose sight of that a story, an actual story is generally about something is generally about something else. Like there's the thing that the story is about, then there's the thing the story is really about. Right. Like that's a story, and has an ending. Has an ending. Like it concludes with something, whether it's like change. Like the ways that I like to define stories is stories either have a change, that something it was like this and it changed. It was like something else, or that there's like a moment of insight.
Right.
That maybe nothing has changed. I'm no different, but now I realize this. Looking back at getting punched in the face, I now realize I should have, or I am like this. So that to me is what defines a good story, is just that, or just a story that something's changed or something is insightful, something is learned. So a new way I've been phrasing this for people when I've been teaching it, a really simplified way, is I call it the moment, the meaning, and the message.
Okay.
That there's the moment, there's the thing that happened, there's the why, the meaning. Like why do you come back to that? Why do you reflect on that? What is that really about? And then the message is like, so what's the teaching? So because I did this and because I learned this, what am I telling my audience? What do I want them to take away from it? So that's a way also of saying like, this is what a story should be, is something that I not just happened like, oh, that's interesting. Because if you just tell me an anecdote of like something that happened to you, I'm not going to say like, that was a bad story, Keith. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to respond like a human does, like, oh, well, that reminds me of this other thing that happened to me. And so now we're sharing moments and we're sharing our lives, which is also a great way of being and communicating, but it's not storytelling.
Yeah. So you sort of answered this question already, but I want to go backwards and say, someone comes up to you, which I'm sure happens all the time, and says, how do I tell a good 5-minute story that's going to kill at the Moth?
Yeah.
What is your advice to them?
Go as narrow as possible. Like tell the least amount of story you can and then do more with that. So the story you just heard me tell, and that was what, like a 10-minute, 15-minute version of that story? Yeah. I mean, I have a great 5-minute version of that story that I think maybe to some degree is better than the 15-minute version because it's concise. I get to it. And that story is primarily about getting punched in the face and about reflecting on this journey that I take with my children and the moment that the punch happens and the aftermath. Like I get right to it. I don't do all the flowery and things. I definitely don't go to like hiding with a baseball bat in my bedroom with my brother. Like I don't get into a lot of the backstory, which I know in this version creates a more complex picture of it. But what I generally say is people have too much story. Is can we come in later in the story? Can we get closer to the end of the story and then only fill in what's needed to get there? Is a great way to get there. Because if your story is your whole life, then you're going to be disappointed because you're like, oh, but there's so much more I want to tell. And you're going to rush it and you're going to rush over the parts that we really want to know. So distilling it down to the core, the main incident allows you then to be more colorful in your build up, your description.
Yeah. I mean, what you're saying is good advice for writing too, because I'm not a storyteller, but I'm a writer. And, even something like writing memoir, a lot of people don't understand. They think, oh, you're telling your life story. No, you're telling one aspect of your life.
Yeah.
And it's about something. And you can distill what it's about in a sentence or two if it's a good memoir.
Yeah.
And it says something about the world.
Absolutely.
That's what makes a good memoir.
Yeah.
Not just like, I was born in 1975 and let me give you a rundown of my life every year.
Everything that's happened year by year, moment by
like
moment.
Everything in it has to have a point to what you're saying, the bigger picture.
The ideal situation is you can take moments. Again, that's the thing, is like that getting punched in the face moment stands for an era of my life. And that's, I think, memoir writing is like pick moments that indicate, that kind of cast like rays of light or shadows into this is who I am and how I became this way. And then pick another moment. And I think memoir writing and storytelling have a lot in common in that way, which is that we can't tell everything. So let's shine lights on these little glimpses. Like we're just peeking in. I mean, I always like to think about that Inside Out movie.
Right.
Where like the brain is all those orbs, those kind of marbly moments.
Right.
It's like you pick any of those of like, oh, what happened there? Like that's to me is good storytelling.
Now at the beginning, before we watched the story, you said that you wanted people to watch this with no information about you.
Yeah.
Because you wanted to so basically show who you were through the course of the story. What do you think the value is of people going on this journey with you? And because you have to learn as a listener that you maybe deal with a confrontation with being passive aggressive or all these other things. What do you think is the value of that information being learned as you're going along in the story instead of having that information up front?
I don't want to call it magic, but it's kind of like the magic of this form for me is that sort of Spalding Gray thing of like, anybody, you could pick anybody, anywhere, put them down and like they have something interesting to say. Like I like that idea that like somebody could stand on your stage and you don't know them, you don't know anything about them. And by the time they walk away 5 minutes later, you're like, I know everything about you. I know so much more about you.
So you like that it's like a stranger enters the stage.
Love it.
And
I love that.
Yeah. And by the time they leave, you like feel something for them.
I love that. That's what I love. And what I think I like about these is like live things. And I'm so grateful for you guys making a live thing that's doing so well is this idea that like what you're doing is you're opening up this idea that like, this is not just about those people. This is about all of us. Like it creates communities. It creates spaces where people feel like understood and safe and all of those great things. Like it's magic to me. It is magic. All of that said though, I just want to call something out is that I mentioned that was my precursor of like, I didn't want people to know anything before I watched it. And then I watched myself and I completely failed. I came in there and I wasted 3 minutes doing setup stuff, talking about driving. I was like doing this like long sort of like very stupid build up to my own story. I'm like, just start, Corey. Just start talking. Why did I do that?
I find myself backstage frequently wishing that a storyteller would get into their story, willing it at them.
Yes.
And I will tell you that I didn't do that with you. I don't do that with some of the stand-ups where I feel like doing a little bit of stand up at the top is okay.
Yeah.
I think it I don't know, just kind of gesso on the canvas, I guess.
Yeah.
But I didn't feel that with yours. I thought that the stuff that you did at the beginning, it warmed them up nicely.
Look, also, was I first,
you were first
after you?
You were first.
So you kind of have to.
And like you said in the story, you had like literally just shown up, which
Yes.
that probably influenced you kind of needing to kind of adjust yourself.
I was warming up.
You were warming up yourself.
Warming up.
Yeah.
Warming up
I was
you
doing my
and them.
physical warm up like at routine publicly because I just got there after being really stressed out that I was going to somehow miss it. And we were talking like, I'm going to put me on later or whatever. Yeah. So that was happening. But that said, just start. Like if I had walked out there and I said, I got punched in the face by a mother of another kid at my kid's preschool, whatever. If I just started the story, people are like, what?
Yeah. I would defend the way that you did it because I enjoyed it, but I generally agree with that advice.
Yeah.
I generally want people to go on stage and just jump into the story. And oftentimes the chatter at the beginning feels like hesitating, feels like
It definitely
being
does.
afraid to jump in.
And so that's why watching yourself is actually not a bad thing, because you
Right.
see what your tendencies are. You see what you do. You see my style. Like JP doesn't do that. JP comes on stage, he breathes, and he just starts telling his story. He doesn't
Unless he's last.
really.
JP has a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He has like almost a rule that
Yeah.
whoever goes last should say something about every story that came before them.
Interesting.
So if he is last, he's going to come out and comment on each of the 3 stories.
does a little like
maybe even a
recap
little bit of my
thing.
hosting.
Yeah.
Then he kind of takes a deep breath. But there's a weird sort of punctuation to it.
Yeah.
He like does take a step back and a breath, and it's like, okay, now he's starting the story.
Yeah,
And he
yeah.
jumps right in. So it's
So it's a kind of
interesting the way he
acknowledgement.
walls
It's a
it out.
kind of-
Yeah.
And there's some grace to that too, I would say, because I have seen him do that, where the idea is that he's acknowledging what's happening. So it's that thing of like, I'm not just going to come and tell my story. I'm going to be part of this thing that we have built.
Right.
And yeah, I guess to some degree, by me starting out the way I did too, that's what I was doing, is that I was acknowledging this moment that we are here. And then I also watched myself, can just be a little self-critical or
Yeah,
self-analysis,
please.
is that I watched myself. I was like, oh, and then I talked about driving. I'm like, I'm telling a story about driving. And I talked about bullying on the road. Like there was actually themes in my prelude
Yeah.
that I was also like pre-setting, like, ooh, I could also put that and call back to that. Like I was thinking of myself as like, I'm also doing the story work before the story has begun.
Yeah.
Still, I wish I had just started.
Let me ask you something about going first.
Yeah.
I come from a stand-up background
Yeah.
where it's very hierarchical. The
Yeah.
person that goes first is the person with the least experience.
Yeah.
The low man on the totem pole. Then the feature is someone's a little higher up, and the headliner is the big shot. And I've had to really push myself not to run these storytelling shows that way.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I put someone in that first position that within stand-up I never would have.
Yeah.
You, for example,
Yeah.
you've got a pretty nice resume.
Yeah.
But we put you first.
Yeah.
And
I
with
love
good
going
reason.
first.
We wanted you to set the table, and we had confidence that you would get us off to a great start. I'm curious, from how does that feel for a storyteller? Like where you are in the lineup, what does it mean to you?
Well, I can speak as a storyteller. I can also speak as a show producer, because I've been in that
Right.
situation where I've curated shows and put different people in different positions in different spots. And something that I feel that for the audience experience, you want to establish and instill confidence for the audience that they're going to have a good show. So putting something strong at the top, I'm not necessarily saying that I'm strong. I think I'm good, but like having something that you have confidence in at the top is setting a tone for the rest of the show.
Right.
That this is going to be a good show, and we believe that this is going to be good. If the first storyteller is stinky and it's like, you know what, maybe we should leave, like
Right.
there's a lot
I
of,
need him to stay through intermission.
you want them to stay through intermission. So what I generally do when I'm structuring shows, because I did this variety show for a number of years called the Asshole Monologues. Maybe I told you about it before. It was like a sort of vagina monologues-esque spin-offy, but it wasn't making fun of the vagina monologues. It was basically the moth before there was the moth, but the theme was always asshole.
Okay.
So the thing is, it was just stories about assholes, and they were people having physical assholes, dating assholes, being an asshole. Like that was always the theme. It was just a variety show, and it wasn't just stories. It was sketch comedy and music and everything. And so for those shows, what I discovered was that I wanted to start out with something really strong, end with something really strong, usually musical for that, in that kind of case. And if I ever had any kind of doubts, like I'm not sure how this person's going to be, I wouldn't cut them from the show, but I would kind of like bracket them. I'd like,
Right.
I know that I can kind of tent pole them around something that I know will be strong. So that way they're going to be let in with something that's kind of like a launch, and then they're not going to take the whole show down with them.
Right.
And then if they do, the one after that is going to bring them back.
Yeah.
So again, it's not like a vote of no confidence, but it's just a way of saying, I'm just going to protect you and the show.
Yeah.
Do you ever think of doing that? Like,
I used to run a comedy show where I didn't accept drop-ins. It was booked in advance, but there were a couple of people that if they showed up, I would say, okay, I'll put you on. Just wait here though. And what I was waiting for was for someone to bomb.
Yeah,
And then it's like, okay, get in there. Because I knew they were going to clean up. I knew they were going to hit it out of the park.
absolutely. Yeah. Have you ever felt this too? Like as a producer, promoter, host, that this is what I always used to feel during the asshole shows, is that when the show was going really well, I was just like, just get out of its way. Just like let the show keep going. Just keep going like that thing. But then if the show's not going well, that's where I felt like I need to
do something
and somehow get involved to like reinflate the tires and like get this car back on track, even if you're in the middle of the show. But the idea is when it's going well, I'm just like, it's like a no hitter. It's like, we're not talking about how well the show's going. The show is going to go well and we're going to get through this. Okay.
And if you ever see me doing more of my own stories in between,
that's what it is.
I'm doing work.
Exactly.
The tires.
Yes, you're blowing up the thing. You're keeping it, and you're bringing the audience back, the confidence. Yeah, which I think is a great skill for anybody to develop. This idea of just awareness that it's not just about you; it's about this whole thing that we're building together. Which is also back to your seed question for I think this whole round of things about lengths of stories. Like 5 minutes is also really good in that capacity as just like let's generally look at things that are in the shorter format, because what you can do then is you can sort of skim and go from moment to moment and create something altogether. Which of course is not to discount the idea of like when we're settling in for like a nice long supper, like that's where I want to settle in and hear something that's like a longer, more involved tale, but I don't want to feel like I'm listening to a 5-minute story that's just taking 15 minutes to tell.
Right.
Okay, so I actually wanted to talk to you a little bit about hosting.
Okay.
Since you are a professional host.
I am.
So you have this quality as a host where you seem like you're very in tune with the audience and that you're enjoying all of the tellers on stage. Can you tell me a little bit about that experience and what you feel like your role is as a host for a show that has all these random people coming on?
Yeah.
How you kind of hold that all together and how you make people feel. I assume the goal is to make everyone feel good.
Kind of.
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
But sometimes I get a little snippy. Like there's times that I'll like, I'm like a advocate and a representative of the audience too in some way. I don't know. This is the way I like to express it. I've said this before, but I do believe this, that I think, especially for shows where it's a hat draw, like where people don't know that they're going to come up there, there's a lot of emotion that are happening from the people in the audience, everybody, for the people who are telling stories that are worried. Am I going to tell my story? Worried about the telling? Am I not going to tell my story? Like there's a lot of that emotion going on from the audience who are not telling stories. Is it going to suck? Is it going to be great? Like there's an uncertainty that we all kind of have. And when I think about this idea that like, I want people to come up and tell their story into this microphone here in this space, wherever it is, small or large, I want that person to do their best. I'm rooting for them. Like I want you to do well. Whoever you are, if it's your first time, if it's your millionth time, I want you to do well and be comfortable. So I take seriously this idea of safe spaces, this idea like, how can we make this stage, this spotlight feel comfortable for everybody? And so by modeling and by also being a little bit imperfect, I'm okay with that, with not being on all the time. I think that's okay. That models for the audience, like it's okay to just be yourself.
Okay.
So that's something that I lean into. The other thing that's weird, still weird to me years in, is that when I started doing The Moth, the producer and the host of that show sit on stage and you can see them, which is still weird to me. This idea that we're there, we're represented on the stage. I understand why. I think that it also creates a little bit of a safety net for everyone, that I can get up and say like, oh, and it's time to stop that story, like if it needs to. But it's also like, I'm aware that people are looking at me sometimes.
You're like a Greek chorus.
I'm a little bit like a Greek
leading
chorus.
Their
So
reactions.
My perspective is, if that's the case, I'm just going to be all in. I'm just going to give them my whole focus and listen to the story with my heart and with my energy and everything, and not fake it and not laugh at things that aren't funny, but like just to be an audience member, so that ideally people stop looking at me and just start watching the storyteller. Like I'm trying to redirect. Like
they're watching what you're watching.
Yeah. You ever gone to Cirque du Soleil? Have you ever seen Cirque du Soleil? Yeah. Something that I've always noticed and am fascinated by their shows is that there's always an act. There's somebody spinning around, flipping around up in the trellises and the things, but then there's also like a clown or a kid watching that person.
Right.
I love that. I love the gaze, the idea of like, that's the thing that we're looking at. And so I'm not watching the kid, I'm like looking at it through his eyes.
Okay.
I'm not calling our show Cirque du Soleil, but I just, in some ways, that's kind of what I try to imbue, this idea that like we're creating a space for people to feel safe. And then I guess I'm modeling good audience behavior of like, let's give them our attention and focus.
So I got a couple questions related to some of the details in your story. Noli, your daughter?
Yeah.
What are they doing now? Have they graduated to spreadsheets, or do they keep a diary of
Good question.
details about other stuff?
Great follow-up. So Noli, which is short for Magnolia, she's my 17-year-old daughter. She's a senior in high school right now. She is applying to college. She has procrastinated it's almost the 15th of January when we're recording this. She's not done. And that's like the cutoff for the final, like Boulder and a couple other schools that she's applying to, which is driving me crazy. But she runs a nail art business, Noli Nail, out of her bedroom. And she keeps detailed logs and spreadsheets and stuff for her business, which she reinvests the money in her Schwab account. Like, she's killing it in my eyes. Like, she's using the skills that she has and she's channeling in ways that I think are going to serve her in her life.
Yeah.
I don't want to raise the ire of the IRS or anything. There's not big amounts of money to be made, but like what she does make, like one kid's fingernails at a time. Like, I see this as an awesome opportunity for her, and the skills that she exhibited as a kid about just being observant, about logging things and stuff like that, are things that are fun to watch your kid evolve over time. Something that was an interest that becomes a thing, a job, a career, a mindset. Henry, my son, is a sophomore at Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, studying economics and math and business and things like that, and is unclear what direction he's going to go, but he has not watched me get punched since that incident.
Such practical subjects he's studying.
I know, with both of their parents are artists.
Yeah.
They're, like performers and writers, and they seem to have no interest in visual or performing, or maybe visual. My daughter does the painting.
Right.
So,
but is this his rebellion?
It could be.
I'll show you, Dad. I'm going to do math. How you like that?
I'm very happy, right?
So your kids did not like nu metal or Deftones. With these music educations that you gave them, which ones hit hard? Which ones did they love?
They liked jazz. They liked reggae.
Okay. Reggae.
And by jazz, I'm not like deep jazz. Like, it's like, bebop and classic, sort of like 50s,
nice.
Swing and stuff like that, jazz, not like Miles and Mingus. Like, I didn't go too esoteric or interesting for them. Just wanted to kind of have them have an understanding. Like, they loved like Dave Brubeck,
Oh yeah.
Like they like music. And my daughter now is she teaches me. Like, she's upset when I taint her Spotify like playlist because I use her account, and when her like, what do they call it? Your Spotify.
You're wrapped.
Yeah.
You're wrapped, and like I've blown it so many years.
Deftones
like,
comes up.
No, I do not like Noah Kahn as much as it shows in my, like there's things that I've listened to that she doesn't. But
oh, it's so fun when they get to that age where they start turning you on to music.
Oh,
I love that.
Yeah. Like, one year I went to Outside Lands, the festival, and like, I don't know who any of these people are.
Right.
But like Noli and her like bestie like showed me like, oh, go check out this person.
Nice.
Of course, they were the best ones to watch. So
that's great.
Yeah. Henry, though, he's weirdly into like EDM and stuff like that.
Okay.
That not weirdly, like, it's just he's at that age, but he likes, I think, music that just kind of like takes you away. It's just kind of like you can just listen and be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think the question on everyone's mind is, did you ever talk to that woman again?
Never.
Did you ever see her?
Never saw her. Never spoke to her.
The school didn't respond?
The epilogue. I sometimes I say this when I tell the stories, that I actually got a phone call from the principal that morning, and I was at the courthouse. So in a hushed tone, I was like, I can't really talk right now. I'm at the courthouse. I didn't say I'm on jury duty. I said I'm at the courthouse, and she freaked out, like, what? Like, thinking that I was like suing the school. Like, I've gone from that moment. And then I told her I have jury duty, and she was like, oh. So I did talk with the principal, and the principal alluded to the fact that there was going to maybe be some social justice, some sort of like community rebuilding. But I think that she also maybe reached out to the woman, and she maybe didn't want anything to do with that. So I did also talk to somebody that she was friends with, like an intermediary, who told me she's an ER nurse. Like she lives a very stressful life. And I probably just got her on a bad day. Like I probably honestly did have like, she was in a rush just trying to drop her kids off, and I screwed with her schedule.
Man, that would be great if she hit you hard enough that you had to go to the ER and then she was your nurse.
Yeah, that would have been something, right? If I actually had to get
would you
carted away
mind
to
editing
her.
the story a little bit?
I could, right?
Yeah.
That's the movie version.
I have had people make suggestions to me where I'm like, you understand that's a true story, right? I know, but that could have happened.
Yeah.
I know, but this isn't a story about what could have happened. It's a story about what I think happened.
Yeah.
Before we let you go,
Yeah.
you have a new book that's come out very recently.
I do.
What's it called? It's on the table. I can't see.
It's called
the
A Story for Everything.
A Story for
Yes.
Everything. Yes.
And here is the short pitch of the book. So I wrote a book a couple of years ago called Your Story Well Told, which is a story about writing stories. So it's a kind of handbook for anybody that says like, how do I come up with story ideas? How do I shape them and tell them? So it's kind of like a Moth style, or in a nutshell style, storytelling handbook. And when I was talking about it, going to bookstores and doing kind of like a book tour for it, people were like, well, but that's not my life. I don't aspire to, I'm not interested in telling those kind of stories. And I would have conversations with them about what they do. And they're like, well, I'm in sales. I'm like, well, isn't that storytelling? And they're like, well, yeah, actually it is. And I talk to people who are teachers that are like, oh, that's storytelling. And I talk to people who are like having to make wedding toasts or eulogies or grant writing. And so I'm like, maybe that's a book. The idea of like, how does storytelling show up in our regular everyday lives as employers that are giving feedback to employees to correct their behavior, or as job applicants looking for jobs? Like, how can I just do better incorporate and involve storytelling in my regular life? And so it's a book full of stories, full of those kind of stories, and full of tools that people can use to be better storytellers. So it's kind of a reference book. Like you can just kind of like get it to say like, I need this kind of story. So you can go there, but it's also, I think, interesting. Like I'm right now in the process of recording like the Audible or whatever, the audio version of my book. And it feels weird to admit this, but occasionally like I'll finish a chapter and I'll go like, oh, that was pretty good. Like I'm kind of like, oh yeah, I like that. You know, so
that's such a wonderful feeling.
Yeah.
I wish that feeling for everyone.
Yeah.
To like be going through your own creative work and enjoying it as an audience member is the best.
Yeah. Not every chapter is like that.
No.
I'm going to admit. There's a couple I'm like, that's okay. It's fine. It's fine. Next one.
That'll do.